Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it is your first time here. My name is Jess. Today's video is going to be a spring book haul, and I genuinely can't remember if in my last book haul I made all kinds of promises about how these weren't going to feature regularly on my channel and I was going to make an extra effort to stick with the books that I already owned and read those. All a load of nonsense, because I have in front of me here on the floor a great stack of books that I have recently acquired, all of which I'm very excited to get to read at some point. So without further ado, let's start talking about them. They are in no particular order, just however I happen to have stacked them in front of me. So let's jump in. The first book I have is 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Louie. This is contemporary romance, and reading the blurb really puts me in mind of Always in December, which I read last year, in that we have two characters who are forced together by circumstance. They have a connection and then we're left as readers wondering if they're ever going to meet again. So in this particular book we have Noelle and Sam, who are forced to spend 8 perfect hours together due to a snowstorm. They have, as I say, a connection, and then we explore whether fate is ever going to bring them back into each other's lives. I have read really good reviews about this. It's described as heartwarming and uplifting, whilst also dealing with some heavier topics and dealing with them well. I really feel like I'm getting into my groove now with the type of romance that I like, and this one definitely sounds like it's going to tick the box. So very pleased to have added it to my collection. Then we have The Surprising Days of Isla Pembroke by Tamzin Keeley. This is another book which really puts me in mind of one I've already read, The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So this is the story of Isla, who is able to pinpoint several moments in her life that she wishes she could go back and change. So there is the day that she started her job at the aquarium, a job she's worked at for the last 7 years and where she feels very stuck, the day her sister ran away from home, and the day her mother died, effectively wrenching her family in two. And when Isla is given the opportunity to do just that, to go back and change those life-altering moments, she jumps at the chance. And this is very much an exploration of what happens after the fact, I think, and how it's not always those pivotal moments but what comes after that is important. So as I say, it really does remind me of The Midnight Library, just another one that I am looking forward to getting to. Next up we have The Testimony of Alice Twist by Susanna Dunn. This is historical fiction about orphan Alice Twist, who is given the opportunity to work as a laundress in the royal court of Mary Tudor, and this is a position that Alice never thought that she would reach because of her lowly orphan status. When Alice is also then pressed into service as a spy, I think things begin to happen. This just sounds like a really entertaining historical fiction told from a slightly unique perspective, with the opportunity for some twists and turns and some suspense as well. So yeah, just one that I'm pleased to be adding to my shelf. I mentioned in my last book haul video, I think it was, that I have signed up for the Rare Birds Book Club for 2022. At the end of last year I tried a number of different book subscription services, but this is the one that I have decided to stick with for this year, primarily because they showcase female authors. So I had Ariadne, that was my January book from them, and then I've got February and March is here. I am actually planning to do a reading vlog with these next 3. I've only got the first 2 here, but I'm going to do the next 3 books that I receive from them, so do look out for that. But the first book I have is Outlawed by Anna North. This just sounds so good. We are following the story of Ada. It's set in 1894, and Ada loves her husband and she loves her job as a midwife, but they have not had any children, and this is viewed with extreme suspicion in their community. And so Ada decides to leave. She joins the notorious Hole in the Wall gang, a band of outlaws who are basically trying to build a community for women who have been outcast from society, and Ada has to decide whether she wants to become a part of that. The thing that really hooked me was a quote that is written on the back of this. It says, "Outlawed features queer cowgirls, gender non-conforming robbers, and a band of feminists that fight against the grain for autonomy, agency, and the power to define their own worth." And I just think it sounds super entertaining, and I'm very much looking forward to picking this up. Then you're going to have to forgive me because I'm probably going to make several errors with pronunciation in the next 30 seconds. We have The Silence of Zardi by Daphne Suman. So this is historical fiction. It's set in the early 1900s, and we are following the stories of 4 families set against the backdrop of the fall of the Ottoman Empire. So it says we're following the lives, the loves, and the losses of these 4 families. I have heard absolutely fantastic things about this book. I'm so excited to read it, from the writing style to the setting to the cast of characters. There is just so much high praise flying around for this book, and I'm very excited to read it. The Ottoman Empire is not a period in history that I have read a whole ton about, so yeah, just really looking forward to picking this one up as well. Okay, this next book I genuinely have no memory of where it came from. I think it must have come in a subscription service that I forgot to cancel, and James must have opened it for me, but I genuinely have no memory of buying this book, and I knew nothing about it. I'm actually quite excited to read it now I know what it's about, but it is The Girls I've Been by Tess. So this is middle grade, and we are following the story of a young girl who has lived several lives and had several identities because her mother is a con artist, and 5 years prior to when we meet her, she has escaped and she has assumed the name of Nora and has tried to live a regular life as a regular girl in a regular community, until one day she is held at gunpoint in a bank heist, and she is with her ex-boyfriend and her new girlfriend, and she is the only one who is going to be able to save them. So as I say, now I know what it's about. I think it sounds really entertaining, really fun. I also believe that it is supposed to be a film, possibly on Netflix. It's in development at the moment, so yeah, just one that I'm looking forward to. No idea where it came from, but yeah, pleased to have it. I am always on the lookout for good new fantasy, and this next book has been compared to the Winternight trilogy by Catherine Arden, which, if you're not new here, you'll know is one of my favourite trilogies. I recommend it all the time, I talk about it all the time, I just love it. So if this book comes anywhere close to that, then it's going to be a firm favourite. So it's For the Wolf by Hannah Witton. As I say, this is fantasy. We are following our main character Red, who has been raised knowing that she is a sacrifice for her kingdom. So first daughter is for the throne, second born daughter is for the Wolf of Wilderwood, and this is a sacrifice that has been made for centuries in order to keep the kingdom safe. And so Red is almost relieved when it finally happens, because she has been raised knowing that that is her fate. However, when she meets the wolf and discovers that he is actually a man and not a monster, it seems like things begin to unravel for Red, and maybe she hasn't been told the whole truth about what is going on. So yeah, as I say, if this comes even slightly close to the Winternight trilogy, then I'm sure it's going to be a firm favourite. Then I picked up a second-hand copy of The Burning Chambers by Kate Moss. I read my first Kate Moss, Labyrinth, a good 10 or 15 years ago. I do have the second one, Sapulka. I think I always get that word wrong, which I've actually not picked up, but I read the back of this and thought, this could be a good long summer read. So it's set in the 1560s in Carcassonne. It's historical fiction with a little bit of romance. So we have our main character, 19-year-old Minou, who works in her father's bookshop, and one day she receives a very mysterious message sealed, which just says on it, "She knows that you live." Before she has time to decipher what this mysterious message means, she runs into a young Huguenot convert, and I think her life spirals off on an adventure like she never suspected that she would experience. So yeah, as I say, it just sounds really fun. It sounds like historical fiction with an element of adventure and an element of romance, and reading the blurb just got me really excited. I love reading bigger books over summer, and I have a very nostalgic memory actually of reading Labyrinth whilst I was on holiday and just falling utterly in love with Kate Moss's writing and with Carcassonne as a place. So if this is anything like that, then I have high hopes for this, and I'm pleased to have picked up a copy. Next up we have The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This is again historical fiction, although I think it possibly has a dual timeline, yes, but historical fiction is clearly what I was predominantly in the mood for when I was buying these books. So start in 18th century London, we have a secret apothecary shop which caters for women who wish to poison the oppressive men in their lives, but things go awry when a 12-year-old makes a fatal mistake which has far-reaching consequences. And then we have a present-day timeline with an aspiring historian called Caroline who stumbles upon a clue basically relating to these mysterious apothecary murders, and I think our two timelines converge and come together. So yeah, as I say, I was clearly in the mood for some kind of historical fiction. This just sounds very intriguing. It was shortlisted for an award. It has received quite high praise. It says on the back, "A forgotten history, a secret network of women, a legacy of poison and revenge. Welcome to The Lost Apothecary." If that doesn't grab your interest, then I don't know what will. Another second-hand book I picked up recently, we have The Heatwave by Kate Riordan. This is definitely one that I'm going to save for the summer. It's a psychological thriller set in the south of France in the 90s, and we're following our main character Sylvie, who returns to her family home in the south of France. She hasn't been for years, and she brings her daughter Emma with her, and as soon as she arrives it is clear that there is something sinister going on which relates to the death of Sylvie's first daughter Elodie, and I think we just begin to uncover what it is that has gone on. As always with this type of book, the less you know the better, because you kind of want to be surprised and not know what's coming. So there is that one. And then I also picked up another thriller which I do happen to have on my Kindle, but I just have a really good feeling about it, so when I saw a copy secondhand I thought I would pick it up, and that is The Sanatorium by Sarah Pearce. So this is set in a beautiful eerie hotel in the Swiss Alps. It is recently converted from an abandoned sanatorium and the last place Detective Ellen Warner wants to be. But her estranged brother has invited her there for his engagement party, and she feels she has no choice but to accept. And I think people start going missing, and so our detective has to work out what on earth is going on. I'm not one for being like unnecessarily creeped out, but there is just something about this that I think sounds so spine-tingling and great, and I'm just really excited to pick it up. So maybe I'll end up not being able to read it, or it might be one of those books that I can only read when it's light outside, but we will see. Then I have two books which I featured in my recent spring TBR video, so I'm not going to talk too much about them. You can go and watch that video if you want to know what they are about in detail. So we have The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is a contemporary romance about a enemies to lovers trope where our couple are forced to pretend to be newlyweds, and they find that they like it more than they thought that they would. And then we also have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson, which is YA about a murder which took place in a small town, and someone investigates it several years later and begins to uncover that things are not quite as they first seemed. So there are those two, and then the final books that I'm going to talk about, because I love a good completed fantasy series, we have the Graceling Realm books by Kristen Kershaw. So the first book we have is Graceling, then we have Fire, the third book is Bitter Blue, and then the final book is Winterkeep. And all of these books, can I just say, the covers are absolutely stunning. Even if I don't like any of the books and what they're about, at least they're pretty to look at. So my basic understanding is that each of these books is about a different character, but that they are all interconnected somehow. So it's, as I said, it's fantasy. In this particular book we are following Katsa, and it's set in the Seven Kingdoms, a world where people can be born with an exceptional skill which can be absolutely anything, and this is known as a grace. Katz's grace is killing, and as the king's niece she is forced to use her skills to be his brutal enforcer until she meets Prince Po, whose grace is combat, and she begins to learn things about her skill, her grace, through her friendship with Prince Po that she didn't know before. And I think somehow it's linked to a secret that could see the fall of the entire Seven Kingdoms. As I say, I think each book is about a slightly different character. I'm sure that it's a much more extensive world and a much more extensive story than I have communicated, but that is that. I'm very excited to be able to add them to my collection, so when the mood takes me I've got them ready to go. And that is it. They're all the books that I have picked up recently. Do let me know if you've read any, if you would recommend that I read any ASAP. I'll always love to chat more with you in the comments. As always, thank you very much for watching. I hope that you are all keeping safe and well. Take care, and I'll see you soon.